Hi, everybody. Welcome to Reveal, and I'm Sherry Lynn. We overcome him by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. Revelation 12:11. This is part 3 of my testimony of what God did when the enemy came with a grand finale assault of the enemy, everything he had, because I was crossing a threshold into the promised land. And he had taken my ministry completely down. And God said, get up, get up. You can do this. And so my first part of the testimony is going to San Antonio, second part to Oklahoma, and help him with a movie, and then praying and seeking the Lord what to do. And you guys, when God answered, that shift was so abrupt. It was a sudden shift. I was packing my car and leaving at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And, I had lined myself up with God. And, I knew what he had spoken. I knew what he had said. And I lined myself up with his promises and destiny. And I was open to whatever God wanted to do. And God answered me. I wondered, at the shift was so abrupt, I wondered about my dad, because he's 82. And if, there was an abrupt reason for me to come back to Colorado, I wondered about that. But my steps were being ordered of God. And so I left Oklahoma around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's about a 15-hour drive. At least it takes me that long. And so I got as far as Kansas by around 10 o'clock that night. Woke up the next morning and there was a downpour, you guys. When I was loading the car, I was soaked. And I drove in that downpour for a couple hours through Kansas. I'd been driving for a while, and I grabbed my phone, and up came a title of a YouTube video, and it said, "You thought you were going through one set of doors, and now you're going in the opposite direction. Keep going. You're on the right path." God is always good to speak to us, confirm. He does not leave us in the dark. When you're seeking him, he answers. And so I was like, yeah, that was a complete sudden shift. And I stopped somewhere in Kansas to get gas. And you guys, when I turned around, there was this great big billboard light, it was lit up and it was flashing. And I knew God was speaking. I'm a seer, and I know when God brings something across my path and I lodge onto it with my eyes, seeing it, he's speaking. And so this sign was flashing, and it said, "The finish line is in sight." That's what it said. The finish line is in sight. And so, you guys, I was just so exhausted, so tired from my journey, and not sleeping in your own bed, being out of your own routine, being out of your routine, even with God and the time I spend with him. So I was driving, and knew that I was going to get into Denver about 10 p.m. that evening. And I knew that my dad was going to be angry. Now, my dad, I stay with him. I'm in the basement. He's upstairs. He's older. And God led me there. I try to help him as much as I possibly can. But when I left to go, he was angry. He was mad. But I know the enemy will use everyone, including your own household, when he's trying to stop you. And you don't let manipulation and control or anything stop you when God has spoken to you of doing something he's asking you to do. So I went anyway and just put my dad in God's hands. So my dad was asleep when I came in, and I fell asleep. I was exhausted. And my plan was, to unpack, get everything situated, and get my channel right up, get back up on my brand new channel I was so excited about. The next morning when my dad got up, and I told him, I was back, and I could just tell in his face he was just angry, and I could just tell that, it was an assignment of the enemy against me. And he said he was planning on having all of my belongings packed up and removed from the house. So things were very cold as ice, and he was angry with me. And I, was just trying to lay low, stay out of the way, pray, seek the Lord, ask God to move, come in, and I was using my authority over the enemy. And, I went and found out that right when I got back, I went to the mailbox and there was a check for me. And you guys, I had used everything I had to do what God asked me to do with all the gas, lodging, everything. I put him first, put my bills off, used the money for him and his plan. And when I got back, there was a check in my mailbox. Praise God. I found out because I left when I did that I had missed a tornado somewhere in Oklahoma. I missed a huge, if I had left any later, the day that I got to Colorado, there was a huge winter blizzard, ice, snow, freezing drizzle across all of Kansas. And I had just missed that snowstorm in Colorado where there was 105 car pileup downtown Denver. So the timing of God was absolutely perfection. So I was, I had unloaded the car. You guys, my car was full. I didn't know how long or what God was doing. I just had filled the car. So I had a lot to unload. My dad left. I was unpacking, and I had a lot to do. Anyway, I was exhausted. I was weak and just tired. But it was good to be back, in my own environment, and I was unpacking. Now, I got a call in the middle of unpacking, and it was from my son's grandma. So it's, their grandma on the dad's side. I got a call from her, and she told me that, the kid's dad or her son had just got out of jail, had come back to the house. Him and my son had gotten into a great big argument, a great big fight. And I will be sharing, a lot of history of this, a big, huge testimony in this, but to make it short, my son had just been out of prison for 7 weeks. When I left, everything was fine. He was helping his grandma. He was organizing. He was cleaning the house. He was doing construction. His grandma's 85, 86. And so he was helping do everything. His dad was in jail. His dad, for drugs. And so anyway, he was, helping his grandma. He was doing really good when I left. And his dad had gotten out of jail, went back to his grandma's where my son was staying. And they got into a great, big, huge fight. This is after 22 years of my son being in and out of prison, in and out of prison. Cycles of destruction of the enemy that literally, you guys, I fought, I contended for my son. I stood with him. I warred against the enemy. I prayed with him when he was in and out of prison, but my heart was in and out of prison with my son. And I had so much joy that he had just got out of prison and was doing well. And every time that had happened, the enemy would come in and the parole would get broken in and out, in and out. I had went through this for 22 years. And the heartache and the heartbreak of what I felt hit me so hard and so intense. You guys, I was instantly crushed and broken in my spirit. I knew that he was back out on the streets. I knew he was back doing what he had been doing before on the streets and the drugs and the whole cycle of all that. And I was crushed. I was broken. I was trying to unpack but it hit me so hard. And I was tired. And that's when the enemy strikes. You're crossing a threshold. You're crossing a finish line. You're crossing into your promised land. You're exhausted. You're tired. That's when he hits with his huge assault. I was so hurt, you guys. I was crying. And I just kept thinking of all in and out and all that he'd been through, and all the shock and trauma and pain that he had experienced, and he had been released, and the joy that we had just had, and then this was happening. And my heart was just broken, and I knew that I needed some help with prayer, because it hit me so hard. I normally can take authority over everything, but it hit me so hard, right in the heart, right in all areas of my soul, emotion. And, I was broken. I was crushed. And this attack came so intense to me, you guys. I want to tell you that I understand people who, feel like they've been through so much hurt, so much pain, they can't go on another step. They don't have another round in them. That's how I was feeling. I didn't have another round left in me to go through this again. And it felt like the enemy's attack intense was to try to tell me, this will never be, you're going to go through this again. This is never going to change. And this intense attack was to try to cause me to give up, want to die, commit suicide. You can't take no more pain, no more of this. And it was so intense, you guys. I knew I needed some help. I reached out to 2 of my friends. I don't have that many people in my life because the enemy uses so many family members, so many friends, and use them to attack me or betray me, that I don't have that many that I trust in my life. But I reached out to 2 that I did, and one was my friend and her husband that I had just left in Oklahoma. And when she called me, I was broken, and I was crying, and I was telling her the thoughts and what had happened, and I was broken, and I was like, and I can't do this again. I can't go through this again. And I trusted them. I explicitly trusted them to share, and I don't open much, hardly at all, because of the enemy. But I knew I needed help, and I knew I needed to reach out, and I knew I needed somebody to pray and intercede and go after the enemy and this horrible attack. So I did speak to her, and I did open up, and I did tell her everything I just told you. And you guys, what happened next, I never would have expected. And I want you to know, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers of darkness, okay? And the enemy will use anything and anyone to destroy you and come at you, even those that you trust. So here I am. I'm already broken. I'm already in the kind of pain, I felt like I was at my breaking point, like I was getting ready to have a breakdown. That's the kind of degree this is where I was at. And so I was telling her, about what had happened and how I was feeling and what was coming at me and attacking me. And that I was having thoughts of suicide, and this attack was intense. And her husband come on the phone, grabbed the phone from her, came on. And they are both leaders. They are both ministers. They are both Christians. And he comes on the phone, and he just overtakes the conversation. And he says to me, "You call yourself a Christian? Are you even Christian at all? You don't have a ministry. What are those words that you speak? Just words?" And he said, "You're just wallowing in self-pity." And you guys, I heard Satan in his voice. And I look back, and this is why I tell you, leaders, ministers that are in pride. Pride opens the door for every evil thing and the spirit of Leviathan. And it is it's an overpowering evil. Like, it hooks its jaws and it's to turn, cause you to bleed, drag you right under. Now, I was already under a vicious attack. This I did not expect. I was speechless and I was instantly hurt. My friend says to me, "You're stronger than that. You haven't turned him over to the Lord. I guess you haven't turned your son over to the Lord." What she doesn't know is I had turned my son over to the Lord long ago. I interceded for him. I had been back and forth, but you cannot separate the heart of a mother. It's impossible. A mother's heart. And I had been through this for 22 years. And she said, "This is sin. Wanting to kill yourself, this is sin." You don't think I know that? I'm thinking, you don't think I know that? And I'm in shock and I'm just listening. I'm speechless. I have no words. The enemy just completely shocked me. Speechless. She said, "Don't you know that that's sin? And you don't have a ministry." You guys, I was blindsided. And I hope I can get through this part, but I was blindsided, betrayed, and hurt beyond belief. I was shocked beyond words. The enemy had attacked me at my weakest point, and I was already broken, bleeding on the floor, and it was like the enemy used these two to put the bullet in and shoot you, kill you. That's how Satan works. You guys, that is a religious spirit. That's the spirit of pride, and this is what it enters and attaches itself to it. A Leviathan spirit. And I knew that it was an intense spirit, you guys. I was being elevated in the spirit. And so they say, new level, new devil. This Leviathan spirit is a spirit that it's like a crocodile, you know. It grabs you, jerks you, cuts into you. You're bleeding, drags you, twists you under, does it again until you're gone. And it was a spirit like that. And then it was religious spirits. Everything that was spoken to me is just like Jesus. No, Jesus, don't you know? You can't heal that man. It's the Sabbath. I'm sorry, Jesus. You know, that would just be sin. They go by the law. And I could not believe what had just happened to me. A religious spirit is self-righteousness, judgmentalism, ungodly control. It's the gallows of Pharisee. And I was being attacked by two friends I trusted at a time where I needed someone to go after the enemy. I used full authority, but I was at a broken place and I knew I needed help. I knew I needed somebody. I expected and thought they were mature, they were Christian, they would go after the enemy. They would pray for me, they would intercede. You know, they would bind up the enemy. They would go after the enemy knowing that it was a full out attack, assault of the enemy. But instead, what the enemy did is attack me. And I'm going to leave off there. At least I got through it without breaking up or crying. But I'm going to leave up there. And I'm going to pick back up and what God did to save my life. God bless you guys. I hope this helps people. This isn't easy to bring out, but God wants the glory, and God deserves the glory for all I've been through, and exposing wickedness and evil in high places. And I hope this helps somebody. And I'm going to finish. I thought I would get a little further on part 3, but I will do part 4 tomorrow, and I'm going to get through this testimony of what God has done in the last 2 months. It was a full grand finale, assault of the enemy. I hope this helps people. God loves you so very much, and always know He'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. And at my lowest low, I'm going to tell you what God did for me. my next testimony. God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.